Three, two, one. Hey, and welcome to Reality Check Podcast, the show where we ask those philosophical questions like, should it be I think therefore I am, or should it be I stink therefore I am? In other words, are we a sensory experience masquerading as a mind, or are we a mind masquerading as a sensory experience?
Very interesting.
This is the question. I mean, am I a body experiencing a mind, or am I a mind experiencing a body? So I've got Ladrhyn Bexx with me today.
Mm-hmm.
You pronounced that right?
That's right, yeah.
I'm not too good at pronunciation.
It's okay, I forget
I'm
myself.
accused of all sorts of terrible things when it comes to these things. We're in my dental surgery. Now we've got the camera with us, but we do have the echoes, and we don't have my high-end mics with us because we're on the hop, so to speak. But we're literally in the dental surgery, so he has seen inside the mind of the dentist. He is here with me, and he's seeing it for real. It's true, folks. It's what I actually do. I drill teeth, I cut up faces on occasion, and that's just before I get to work.
That's a bit of synchronicity for me as well, because I've had a bit of a tooth issue myself. Got here, I'm like, you know.
He does indeed. He's got a slightly swollen face.
I have.
So he has informed me, however, that all is being taken care of, and I'm not going to get too dental on the matter.
No.
Now, we want to get a little more into where me and Ricardo, where our paths cross. So our paths cross historically because we met at a retreat with Todd Ekimesis,
Yeah.
which was about
Oh,
7 or 8 years ago.
that was like 2008 or 9.
Yeah,
The Tower.
Yeah, the Tower, which
Yeah.
was an amazing experience.
Really good
And
place.
I love working. Todd's coming on the show by the way in a few weeks' time. I'm sure he said it to you.
Okay.
I love working with him. Love his attitude. Love his ideas. Love his creativity. Constantly creating great ideas. You yourself run Parsonage Side Retreat,
That's right.
and that's I know Southwest, but where exactly?
It's Bridgewater area, like
Okay.
near Taunton. Yeah.
And by the way, it looks fabulous. Every time you post on Facebook, I check it out. I'm not just saying it seriously. I love the look of it. I think it looks amazing. You're constantly reinventing it. You're constantly coming up with great ideas. You've got all sorts of retreats going on there, and because I see them advertised, you're constantly plugging, constantly coming up with ideas. You're also out in Ibiza soon, is what you're saying to me?
Yeah, October. Yeah, for 9-day retreat. That's interesting.
So a little about your own background, just so people understand who they're listening to and why it is they want to listen to us. Because I want to get into something very specific with you in a moment, but just a little more about your own background first. What's been your kind of experience in terms of your own journey? Have you kind of, how would I say, have you come from a spiritual background, aka something along the lines of the Buddhist, Hindu type philosophy? Have you kind of come at this as a scientist more so? Have you come at this as somebody who's just more of a psychonaut? What's been your kind of experience?
Actually, everything. I mean, it's all based on experience. I haven't done much reading. A lot of it's down to hands-on experience.
Yeah.
Since I left school, I had like a year gap where I didn't do anything. I stayed on the woods side. I didn't know what meditation was. I just intuitively just got and meditated one day. Intuition has always been a big part of me, and it's like there's another part of me that's subconsciously being guided. You know, your intuition or your inner tuition almost. And sometimes I have no idea why I'm doing something or walking. Sometimes my legs just take me somewhere, or my mind takes me somewhere, and like synchronicity. But like it's also I get this like this link, I guess. You know, maybe like a Wi-Fi type thing that you're tuning into or telepathy, where I'm being guided, and it's crazy. I get this like this urge to do something, and I have no idea why. I just have to follow it, and like boom, it's taken on a bit of a path. I just sat down one day and meditated and didn't know what I was doing. I had my first out-of-body experience, and that was quite intense, and I was like, this is strange.
So did you have the first out-of-body experience from a meditation?
Yeah, the first time I meditated,
Yeah.
I had an OBE. What happened? I didn't know what I was doing. I just got a candle, some incense from my parents' cupboard, and sat down like
DIY meditation,
yeah,
basically.
Yeah, sat down,
which is cool, by the way. That's really I prefer that, to be frank. I don't think you can kind of contaminate it with ideologies that don't necessarily intuit to your being, but by just allowing whatever you want into the space, it just becomes your experience.
Yeah, it was unique to me, and it was very emotional because I've never experienced that sort of energy. I just sat down one day with a candle in front of me, some stargazing music. It was called by Dan Gibson, really
very
nice
cool.
album. Have you heard of it?
No, but I'm going to check it out afterwards.
Yeah, it's really nice. Cool, like guitar music, very subtle.
Very nice.
And I just breathed up and down my body, like up and down. I didn't know what I was doing. I just followed. No one ever taught me how to meditate, and I just had all these vibrations throughout my body. I thought, oh my god, what's going on? My whole body was physically vibrating. I just lay down in my bed, and then before that, I put a sign on my door to my parents, my mum, saying, "Please do not disturb." And then next to me, it was like, dinner's ready, and the angry teenager back then, like over 10 years ago, was like, F off, you know. And down below, I heard this voice from my physical body saying, please come back later. And I was like, what, who's that? But that was me.
Wow.
And every day after that for a year and a half, I meditated, you know, religiously. And I got all this energy, physical vibrations, and had a lot of telepathy going on with people, a lot of psychic experiences, very deep lucid dreaming. I just thought, well, I'm lost down the rabbit hole at the moment.
I'm with you on that, dude. I concur, unfortunately. Once you start sniffing down this rabbit hole, you're going all the way, and unfortunately the thing is endless, so you're just going to keep at it.
Yeah.
So when you came to Todd's gig years ago, you presumably had some experience at that point.
I did.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was describing myself as a lucid dreamer, if there is such a thing. That was my kind of signature. So like, it was almost like these superheroes meeting up. What's yours? Oh, I have fire. I have eyes. Oh, I got wings.
X-Men, right?
It was very X-Men-ish, wasn't it? Seriously. Yeah. And there was Todd. He was like the OBE guy. He was like the out of body. Like, fuck, he's got a cool power going on. What can he do?
Yeah, I like your Matrix style on your website.
Oh yeah, I was on the Matrix buzz back then, big time. Yeah. And I realised now that was just a metaphor trying to express itself through me. And obviously, you know, you dig deeper into these metaphors, and you do understand that we're all saying very similar things, and we just express them in different ways. And it's so cool to catch up with someone like you right now. Now we're more grown up and we understand these things in different ways. And we really, and I don't just mean you and I, but I mean we as a community, we as a consciousness, we as a global enterprise have really moved this thing forward. And that's because of the internet, let's be honest. I mean, it's connecting with each other and demonstrating things to each other and showing each other all sorts of new ideas. I see in your arm there, for example, you got a tattoo, which is a very cool tattoo, by the way.
Thank you.
But it's got the whole fractal gig going on.
Well, it's the Shiantra, which is it's have you heard of cymatics?
No, but I'm really intrigued by it. I mean, it's honestly, it just draws you right in. Speaking of rabbit holes, by the way, it's like a rabbit hole in your arm. I just feel my vision being drawn into it endlessly. I'm just being hyper focused on your arm.
That's what I do. I just meet people and they just get trapped in my arm, you know.
Yeah, that's really cool. But this is like, because you know, we think about gravity, for example, right? And we think that gravity is this force that occurs, like that it's an attraction between two things, but it's actually not. Gravity is it's hard to explain gravity without kind of illustrating it, but it's often illustrated as taking like a big latex sheet and putting a bowling ball in the middle of it. And that stretches the sheet towards the center, towards the heaviest point of it. And anything you put on that sheet would fall into the center. Yeah. So gravity is a lot more about kind of falling towards a force rather than this idea of attracting things necessarily. It's not that things are pulling towards each other. It's actually that space-time itself gets warped and things fall along the gradient of space-time. So there's a kind of a gravity with that right there. There's like a visual gravity. It's like I'm falling into it. You know, I can just feel my consciousness pouring into it. But that's interesting because this is a new way of kind of opening up that experience of gravity. I mean, to me, that speaks volumes about how we experience our world. You know, we intuitively think of gravity as well. We think of it as something sticky almost, don't we? You know, that things stick to the floor because gravity pulls them to it. Yeah. But they're not. As I said, they're falling along a gradient. It's different kind of motif.
Well, I believe we're a whole canvas, and I've got a few tattoos which like sacred geometry.
Right on. Yeah. Is that sacred? So explain to your work, because I interrupted. I'm definitely interrupting.
No, it's alright. It's fine. It's part of the conversation. But cymatics is when you have like a metal sheet of like metal, and you put like sand on it, and you put a frequency for it.
Yeah, I've seen this. Okay.
And it creates patterns. And they they got Tibetan monks, I think, to chant over a frequency, which is Om.
Okay.
And that's what came out. This is really just thousands of years old.
That's really fucking something. Seriously, that's awesome.
It's found all around the world in different like.
And is that lotus leaves around it, presumably?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, lotus leaves. And they did this. They measured the frequency of Om, which is 136.10 hertz.
Oh right, okay.
And it does the same frequency again. So that's the Om basically.
That's really fucking cool, man. I gotta say. Have you ever performed the Om yourself during any altered state of consciousness? Have you ever tried it, for example, in a lucid dream, or not to assume you have a body experience in the lucid dream? We'll talk about it in a moment, perhaps. But in any, I use the term altered state of consciousness just to kind of throw the net out there.
Sure.
If you practice the Om in any of those, and do you reherse Om? Is that something you do personally?
That's funny you say that. I do a lot of like chanting, harmonics, overtones. I'm very much into sound healing and entertain people with like meditative environments and. That's something I haven't discovered on like the other sort of planes of existence of like being conscious in dream states where I haven't actually done this. So you've opened up my mind.
Yeah, and seriously, honestly, this is something that I'm really very focused on myself is trying to take these kind of instrumental technologies from the ordinary state of consciousness and introducing them into the auto states of consciousness. So something you might ordinarily do is in meditation, chanting, in my case Tai Chi, and taking them into older states of consciousness and practicing them in there and seeing what they do. Because needless to say, in those states of consciousness, people would just presume that it's just going to be amplified. And it's probably a bit of a throwaway statement that it's amplified. I mean, it just does the same thing but more. Not necessarily. In some ways, it can be quite weird. For example, I do Tai Chi in a lucid dream state. Now, most people would think that, oh, then it must be really cool to get loads of energy or whatever the fuck that means. Not really. It's really hard. It's really difficult to do it, and for a variety of reasons.
Especially if you're not conscious as well, because I guess you're feeling a bit stuck, like that gravity thing you're talking about.
Yeah, it's almost the opposite in some ways in lucid dream, because lucid dream you keep floating around the place.
Right?
Okay, and you need gravity to do Tai Chi, because Tai Chi is based on gravity. Tai Chi, so you're familiar with Tai Chi or Qigong or some form of it?
Yeah, I've been into like Kundalini yoga, for example.
So the simplest way to describe Tai Chi is to take your arm and just swing it. So you know, like a kid, you swing your arm, you swing it back, you swing it forward. So your arm's like a pendulum. Okay? So the idea being that the arm swings under its own natural momentum. You don't actually have to swing the arm. You put small inputs in, and the arm does the rest of the work itself, because the pendulum kind of has its own motivation to it. It has its own kind of energy that everything that happens is creating potential for the opposite, which creates potential for the opposite. Eventually that winds down to zero, but if you put small inputs in, it stays continuous. Well, that's how the Tai Chi form is performed. You basically put small inputs in, and the Tai Chi form does itself. Mostly it's about putting as little effort in for as maximum outcome as possible. And then that kind of translates in the martial arts as to kind of putting less effort in for more outcome. Your opponent creates the energy and you hijack it, throw it around and so forth. That's the whole judo concept.
And the Matrix.
And the Matrix and all that. But in a lucid dream, it's really bizarre because there's no sense of gravity. Your body feels really floaty. So when you kind of throw your body to the left, as in like you treat your body as a pendulum in Tai Chi, so you swing to the left before you swing to the right. In the lucid dream, you swing to the left and you float off the ground. You follow me? You swing to the right, you float in a direction.
It's like in space, right?
It's like in space. Yeah, literally in space. And I find that like really tricky to do. So
although I had an experience a while back where it sounds weird, but I had a lot of like dream experiences in toilets. It's like in toilets.
In
like,
toilets, okay, yeah.
Not actually going in the toilet, but like cubicles.
Okay, yeah.
Like I'll go in a cubicle and then come out and be in a different environment. And I walked into this
This is in
a lucid dream, not
yeah,
in real life.
Okay, because the toilet TARDIS technique, as you might call it. Yeah,
definitely. So basically, it's.
So we got a little interference. Lovely gift. Talk about toilet TARDIS, and here she comes every time.
So basically, I walked into this toilet, opened up, and there's 4 men in black suits with black hats with briefcases, all lined up at the urinal. And instantly it was kind of like a reality check. I was like, oh, I'm dreaming. And so I went outside and thought, oh, I'll start floating up to fly. And I couldn't. Like something in the reality was stopping me from, like that blueprint or the laws of that reality was stopping me from floating or flying.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So what I had to do was manifest a door under this like railway station bridge.
Yeah.
And I went through it, and then like I could then travel. But for some reason I was in this environment where I couldn't fly, I couldn't travel. So I mean, depending on what sort of lucid dream you have or what environment you are, there's like seems to be rules.
Yeah, see, I think that's a very good question you're getting at right there. So my definition of a lucid dream, I mean the classic definition of a lucid dream is when you realize you're dreaming, blah blah blah. But my definition of a lucid dream is, and I'll kind of frame this for you, is when matter realizes its mind and takes on a new creative perception. So let me kind of break that down for you.
Sure.
When matter, which we ordinarily perceive ourselves to be, realize that we're made of something else, which we define as mind, then you now take on a new creative process. So, for example, ordinarily, if you want to fly, you might want to strap yourself to, say, a jetpack, or you might get in an airplane, or whatever you want to describe that as, or get a pair of false wings, or whatever you want to say. You know, that's how we fly in the world of matter, where the rules are defined by the laws of nature as we interpret it and so forth. So that's our kind of, that's because at the moment you and I have understood ourselves to be matter. But when you have a lucid dream, what you're actually saying is those rules no longer apply.
Right.
Because now I'm in the world of mind.
Yes.
But where are you really? I mean, are you currently really in matter? When you're in a dream, are you really in mind? Is there a difference? Are we mind? Are we matter? Are we matter experiencing mind? Are we mind experiencing matter? Or is it something in between? And is it really what's happening? Is what's shifting is our perception? And that's just another way to look at it.
It is. Maybe this is a perception of a different double of us. You know, maybe we don't actually, our body state, maybe we don't actually come out of our body. Maybe we're just transcending a different perception from a different body of like a dimensional part of us.
Perceptual frequency, I think, is probably, I mean, that's kind of where I'm taking this discussion myself now. And just to kind of bring it back to the whole out-of-body experience versus lucid dream versus ordinary reality. I think what's pertinent about the word out-of-body experience, or the expression of the body experience, is the word experience. Right?
Yes.
That's the operative word. You're experiencing the sensation of leaving your body. But to say you're leaving your body, as people casually do, and I appreciate if we're just making small talk, you know, I left my body and I floated around or whatever. But just, I think it's crucial for, you know, when you get into the role of being the teacher. In your case, in my case, I'm very much the kind of investigator more so. But it's crucial not to kind of take that too literally, and to kind of to give people this idea, this frame of reality that, okay, well, there's a physical dimension, and then there's the out-of-body dimension, and it's like there's layers of something. It doesn't wash. I mean, if you look at your arm right there are layers to that, but they're only as finite as your eye can see, because what's implied by that fractal X-ray right there is infinity, clearly, right?
Definitely.
It's, of course it is, and that's what the whole fractal motif is. It's our perception of infinity, much as we can perceive infinity. We can allude to infinity, perhaps. We can never actually perceive infinity, although in my view we kind of can. I think that's a whole other philosophical debate. But so when we kind of have these layers that people say, well, there's this layer, and so on, it all gets very kind of dualistic. It all gets very kind of anthropomorphic and very much, you know, reality is what you see is what you get. Because I perceive this dimension, this is what the thing is. I don't buy into this at all personally. So from my point of view, what seems to be kind of changing is just our perception. And then this question I posed at the start of the podcast, when I said, am I a mind experiencing a body, or am I a body experiencing a mind? The way I look at that personally is, if you were a mind, okay, let's just say I'm a mind. A mind can't experience itself without having some kind of traction, without having some kind of purchase on itself. And the way it does that is it experiences itself through form. And that form is the you and I and the environment that we occupy. And therefore, by implication, a mind can't actually experience itself without having something to define itself as, which is a body, I guess. And then likewise, if you took a body in the same way, and you said, how does the body perceive itself? So the sensory information is pumping into some sort of a center, and that center then is processing that information into some sort of a texturized experience that ultimately constitutes a mind. So what I'm basically saying is that, you know, there's no such thing as a body without a mind, or a mind without a body, and therefore it's the same. It's just, so what am I ultimately? Well, I guess you can call it a mind-body, a body-mind. That's the kind of common way of looking at it these days. But I think where we let ourselves down is when we try to define ourselves as either or. When we try to forge a world that's made of material, that somehow complexifies and precipitates a mind at a certain level of biology. That's the kind of classic materialist reductionist view of reality. And then like what? Go for it.
Well, then you're actually seeing it from a human point of view there, because you're seeing perception of a mind, which is in a human form. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, are we conditioned in a way to be a human spirit or energy? You know, because we're not really a human form at all. We're just, you know, it's like we're molded into this physical meat suit to, you know, to be a bipedal, like you know, human being.
Here's the thing: it's that physical meat suit I got the problem with. I mean, why are we so fixated on this idea of a physical meat suit thing? I mean, what is here exactly? What's here? That's the question. I mean, where's this thing, this meat suit coming from? Where's it being precipitated from? I mean, I'm trying to get my finger under this thing here, and I can't. Every time I try, I'm saying, well, what's underneath that? You see, if we take this kind of model of reality, that we are these kind of biological puppets that are being occupied and orchestrated by this thing we call spirit. That spirit is animating the physical body and lifting up the arms and moving it around. But behind this physical body, as we define it, there's this kind of ephemeral type like, is that the right word? I don't even know what the fuck Inferno means, but I think it's right. It sounds good anyway. Everybody probably bought it if I hadn't contradicted myself.
Yeah, yeah.
Either way, you get the idea. This kind of floaty type apparatus that's kind of somehow pulling the tissue up and moving the hands around and so forth. And then when the body eventually dies and decays, that this spirit somehow lives on and it has its own kind of form outside of the body and so on. And I say, I ain't buying that shit.
Well, there's different traditions that have different beliefs. It's like, I think the Tibetans or the Himalayas, they believe that, like for lucid dreaming and sleep, for example, they believe that, you know, if you fall asleep, you die like an unconscious death.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also things like, you know, once you die, that's it. Some people have, you know, some traditions have that. I'm not sure which traditions.
Mm-hmm.
And some believe that you keep incarnating. It's just, but what is this? Is this a perception or a belief that another leader has experienced and brought down to lead?
What's been your experience?
Of
what's your view?
Well, I've had numerous past life experiences and evidence for myself.
That's interesting.
One of them was I know my previous life was a Spitfire pilot,
Mm-hmm.
and when I was about 5 years old, I didn't know anything about planes. And my brother got some little models with like a background and with little planes and stuff. And I told him what ones they were. I said that's a Spitfire plane. And he looked at the box and he go, how did you know that? You know, I was like 5 years old and I knew nothing about Spitfires. And over the years, I had like flashbacks of being, flying in the cockpit, and I didn't die in like war or anything. I died of natural causes in my lounge. I was 86 years old, and listened to the wireless, and yeah, I remember all that. And then passing over, remember waking up on this plinth, what they call like the hall of mirrors, which have all like a soul rehearsal of like all the bad things and good things that you've done in that life, so you can reflect on it. And then I remember passing over into like this astral world where there's like this river, this stream with a canopy of trees, and I mean I remember all that. I remember passing over, but it wasn't painful. It was beautiful, really. So yeah, and also other past life evidence up the road from Passing Side. There's a place called Minehead, like a village, and there's an abbey there. And I went there, arrived, and I had this voice in my head saying, Jonathan, Jonathan. I spoke to the owner of the guy who was showing around the abbey. I said, does the name Jonathan mean anything to you? He said, there's some medieval graffiti up in upstairs, I'll show you. So I had a look, and instantly I had a flashback, and I was like, I drew that. So in a past life I was a monk, and I drew like Jonathan on the wall as a graffiti, and then drew like a little monk's face, and I got really punished for it. So I might have been tuning into someone else's life then, but
sure.
It felt so solid to me. I had a lot of memories and a lot of emotion. So for me, that's personal evidence. It's not 100%, but
no, I appreciate that. I think it's important that you've got the right stance as far as I'm concerned. You can only ever be your own personal experience.
Exactly.
I could talk to you till you're blue in the fucking face, and at the end of the day, ultimately it's going to come down to you answering the question for you, and I can't tell you what, and I don't even fucking know either.
No. This is not what I'm here about. I don't want to be telling people that this is what that is, this is what that is. I want to be able to guide people, lead people, hold events where people getting the information and experiences for themselves, because that's more validating. If you listen to someone else's experience, that's cool, but to get your own experience, that's more powerful.
So, do you distinguish between a dream body and a physical body? I mean, do you draw that kind of distinguishment?
Well, I've been a bit rusty the last year, but when I was practicing, I had some quite interesting experiences which I think validated some experiences I had. I believe that it's a mixture of like psychology and dreams and subconscious. We dream and we have stuff that's on our mind which gets filtered out. But that, I've had experiences which, I can know. It's like I'm getting evidence that I could no longer know otherwise. I'll tell you about a lucid dream experience I had. I woke up in this like log cabin with there was this like two older people than me, like a male and female. Two girls with blonde hair and these two black boys, like twins, and then this girl a young woman about my age, and I ended up taking her back in that reality, in the dream state, back to my place, and we had a bit of a romantic time. It's quite nice. And then I took her back to her reality where she wasn't part of the world, and something was going on with her hair. I wasn't quite sure what was going on, and she went to this shop in this like village, and came out, and her hair was different. I couldn't quite suss it out. And then we really connected on the heart level, and I woke up and I was like, wow, like, who was that? Like, I've disconnected with someone on the dream state, like, but I was emotionally like all over the place for a few weeks. But during that day, that morning I woke up, I was like, I want to find her again. So I went to sleep with the intention to find her, found her, and I asked her, how can I find you? She said, my name's Katie, such and such, I want to say because of confidential reasons. She said, this is my name, find me on Facebook. So I woke up, wrote the name down, didn't think much of it, but I had this heart energy going on me for, you know, all day. Typed the name on Facebook and there she was. Looked her up online, there was a picture of her with two girls with blonde hair, two young black boys with two, you know, older adults. And I was just like, wow. And she had dreadlocks at the time. She was working in this like Catholic community. And then a week later, she cut all her hair off. So that for me was like validation. I was like, wow, I've had this experience.
You were fucking stalking her.
Well, I didn't know what to do. I thought, does she remember this experience? So I did message her.
You did or you didn't?
I did.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And I thought, I'm either going to freak her out or I'm going to have an interesting experience where, hey, in the future, how do you two meet? Oh, you met through Lucid Dream and, you know.
Well, yeah, okay.
But I thought, you've got to take a chance.
Fucking sure. Well, nothing else, just the curiosity of it, yeah.
And not that, she was a very religious woman,
okay.
very Catholic, so I thought she's going to be open to it. Either she's going to be freaked out, but sometimes you have to take a chance.
Well, I think a Catholic won't be freaked out.
It was a chance I had to take, and I was like, okay.
I mean, she's advertising she's a Catholic on Facebook, she's the real fucking deal.
Yeah, definitely. So that was very powerful for me, and that energy stuck with me for a few weeks. And I
what, did she fucking know or what?
Well, she didn't know, she didn't get back to me, which it doesn't clarify anything, but for me, I had the evidence for myself to think, wow.
She probably thought you were Satan, that's why she cut her hair off.
She might have did, yeah.
I think you possibly prompted that.
I might have done.
She's pulled a Sinead O'Connor.
But to me that was a powerful experience because there's so much evidence there I saw on the internet.
Well, you know, whether you're aware or not, I mean, it's something I set up a year or two ago, but I kind of let it drop because it just lost the momentum for me. But I set this experiment online where people could, you know, exchange passwords in the dream world. And that was the idea of, you know, the lucid dream, or what they call it, the mutual dream experiment, they call it. It's still running on my website on wakeupiandreams.com, little plug there. I'm not going to pretend that I put a lot of energy into it. And when you don't put energy into things, they decay. That's just the way
manifestation, right?
Absolutely. So I'm, you know, put my hand up and say I spent a bit of time and money and effort in that, and frankly, I neglected to keep pumping it, and it's probably a bit of a missed opportunity. I could resurrect it, the software still runs fine, the whole system runs fine, it's all doing its thing, but I don't think I've got the drive to cater for it and to promote it like I used to, and it's so hard to be relevant today, you know, to actually get any traction with an audience. And I respect anybody who takes the time to listen to this podcast, for example. With podcasting, I think I've got the opportunity to keep an audience interested because I can keep changing tack. Yeah. I can keep reinventing myself. I can keep asking questions. I can meet interesting people. We can have interesting conversations. I listen to podcasts because I find them interesting, and I like being part of that community. I like putting out what I get back from the podcast world, whereby trying to get people to kind of congregate in this dream experiment, it all felt somewhat irrelevant in a modern world, where everything is so diluted, people's attitudes are diluted, everybody's kind of turning different directions all at the same time. I mean, the world is not getting smaller, it's expanding, it's diluting. And because of that, it's very, very difficult to ask people to try and be in the same place at the same time for anything. We're living in an increasingly virtual world. So I respect that, and I kind of felt it wasn't something I wanted to kind of continue with because of that. But the idea was simply that people could go into the dream world, and people can still use the facility if they want to. It still technically works, like I said. Even if it's just between two people, they can still run the same system. So the opportunity is there. People can go into the dream world, try to exchange passwords, and then try and vary subsequently using a kind of how would I say, well, it's a password-based system, but it's kind of avoiding that situation that you had with Katie who shaved her head off, whereby you don't have to directly interact with the person. It's using a kind of indirect method to allow you to kind of probe whether or not you could have experienced it with somebody without putting them on the spot, without colouring their experience for them, saying, well, I experienced the following, did you experience that too? In which they just go, well, yeah, sure I did. And that doesn't really answer anything. It gives you an opportunity to ask them, what did you see? And they get to tell you, so you get to verify from your end. So it's interesting, but the question I was raising at the time was, you know, is it possible for you and I to have a mutual lucid dream? And people report this all the time, of course they do. And hey, I'm sure it's very likely and most likely possible. But I think it's likely the same way that UFOs are likely. And again, I think that's almost inevitable. But there's still 1% of it that says, well, I don't know. I mean, there's no proof currently.
We always have a bit of doubt on us because it's the way we're conditioned, you know, especially from our parents. That they've taught at the schools, you know, we're taught to be regimental in a logical sense, and we don't open up our right brain until we have these experiences.
Here's the thing, dude. You've got to consider that. I mean, like, whether we want to accept it or not, there seems to be some kind of I'm not going to say rules to reality. I like where Rupert Sheldrake goes with that when he talks about the habits of nature, what are the rules of nature. And those habits are so ingrained that they can effectively be viewed as rules. But, you know, we might say that as a rule, for example, man can't fly. Now, at the moment we can get in airplanes and we can strap ourselves to a variety of various forms of equipment. I just saw a new one.
We sit in a chair in the air.
Absolutely, sure. Well, technically speaking, the whole fucking planet's floating.
Oh yeah,
that way, yeah.
That's right.
So we can certainly take that point of view. But I think it's fair to say that the distance between man and flight is closing. I mean, you take wingsuits, you take parachutes, you take jetpacks, you take any kind of hoverboards. They're around the corner. I'm waiting for them. I presume you saw the viral fell for it too, the one with Tony Hawk.
Oh, you know, I did that straight away. I could see the crane in the background,
really?
The shadow. Yeah.
Oh
really?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I spent at least fucking 45 minutes. My eyes watering like this is it. The hoverboards here. And I eventually figured it out. Well, I didn't figure it out, somebody fucking told me. I actually totally bought it.
No, a good friend of mine was like a real interesting, true speaker. You know, she really opened my mind to, you know, seeing the evidence between things. And you know, when I watched it, I thought, is that real? Can't be, because it was that same hoverboard from, you know, Back to the Future.
It was.
And I was like, is this?
Yeah.
And then I saw the shadow of the crane, and I thought, well, it's fake. And then I saw
I'm surprised. I'm a magician. You think I would have fucking seen it?
And I saw the deleted seat, and Doc was in there as well. So.
He was. Yeah. It was a bit of a farce, to be frank about it. But yeah, well, the sucker born every minute and all that. And apparently, I've been. In that regard, I've been reincarnated many times. Yeah. This sucker's been born many times. So yeah, well, my point is that what I'm saying is that that anything ultimately is possible with sufficiently developed technology. And as a quote from Arthur C. Clarke when he says that technology, when sufficiently developed, is indistinguishable from magic. And my brother put it back to me and said, magic, when sufficiently developed, is indistinguishable from technology. And I like that. It's kind of the whole body, mind, body. Magic, technology, magic. It's kind of the whole idea that, this is an idea I throw around as well, where I say, you know, what's the difference between biology and technology? There's none, really.
Well, you know, I think that ultimately, you know, we're heading to a technological state, you know, where it's full of technology in the future. Things will become more futuristic and technology. But really, I think we're coming to the point where we'll probably create a biological being, you know, where we're like, that is the technology.
Well, if you actually get behind biology and get deeper into the biology, ultimately you're into physics and chemistry, and you're into chemistry first, and
electromagnetic fields and everything.
Literally into electromagnetic fields, of course you are. I mean, I'm literally performing surgery here this morning, and if I'm looking at what I'm trying to regenerate bone in this surgical procedure this morning. And when I'm doing that, you know, I'm looking at that very much from the point of view of biochemistry. And when I look at biochemistry, you just right down to EMFs then, totally. That's what's generating it right there. You're right down to energy fields. And that's the point, is that there isn't really this difference between technology and biology that we so paint and so obvious. We seem to kind of think that everything that humans do is bad, everything nature does is good. And I'm not sure that's true. I mean, what's good about a comet hitting the Earth and wiping out an entire generation of fucking dinosaurs? You know, what's good about that? That's nature.
Well, that's what Jurassic World did with that. That was really good.
I heard it was quite.
Yeah, really good movie.
The guilty one. I'll go see it. Yeah, I'm not going to go for that one. Apparently, there's some complaints about the fact that the T-Rex has got no feathers, because apparently they had feathers.
Yeah, there's some research that says that they dug up dinosaurs and they had feathers.
I'm sure it's a crack of shit, to be honest with you. Look, everybody knows dinosaurs aren't enjoying chickens. I ain't going to buy it, so don't sell it. So speaking of which, time travel, going back to see the dinosaurs, that's definitely, I would say, one of the, it's on the higher end of the list of things I would like to do in Lucid Dream, is to visit the dinosaurs.
It's on your bucket list of OBs?
Yes, it very much is, man. I'm not as frequent a traveler to the Lucid Dream world now as I used to be. I kind of got involved with Lucid Dream for a very specific reason, which was I wanted to understand the nature of my existence, of my reality. And I got what I was looking for, really, I really did. And I'm very much, how would I say now, I'm kind of life after enlightenment. What happens then, if there's such a thing? Or can you ever be enlightened, and what does that mean? And what does it mean to understand the nature of reality? So I had this debate with people quite frequently. We'll get that one in a moment, but let's go back to the time travel thing first. I'm more curious about that. So have you, because I've seen you, this is the thing you were advertising on your parsonage site.
Time travel retreat, is it?
Specifically, well, timeless, you called it.
Well, yeah, timelessness, yeah.
Yeah, so let's get into that. So you've obviously, there's no way you're advertising that unless you've experienced it, and I know what you've experienced too, because I've experienced it, and it's a very fucking bizarre thing to experience.
It is.
It's arguably the most, well, I think it's the punchline of the whole thing. It's when you step outside time.
Well, it's part, our circadian rhythms is ruled by time, essentially biologically. We don't really need an alarm clock, because the majority of us have had this experience where we set a time for being up at 7 a.m, right? And a lot of us have woken up before the alarm goes off, right?
Right.
And that's because we're programming ourselves. You can get to the point where you don't even need an alarm clock. You just say, I need to wake up at a certain time, enough time for me to wake up. But I went to the Monroe Institute, about Monroe Institute.
Yeah, sure, of course.
And how they do the gateway voyage out there is, they have a week-long program without any sense of time. And that really inspired me. And when I did the program, I was like, this is really powerful. It really detaches people from the modern world and goes within, within the state of mind and spirituality, wisdom, getting inspiration, and actually feeling a bit more detached and more relaxed. When I say detached, more so from the modern world, where we've almost lost touch of this world that we live on planet Earth, because we're ruled by modern technology around us, cell phones and like laptops and technology, and we don't get time to really be in our own energy. And the timelessness retreats I'm focusing on is having a weekend or a week-long program where there's no sense of time. Take down all the clocks. You don't have any mobile phones or technology or Wi-Fi, and there's a bell rung for like dinner time and everything. So you have a sense of time in a sense, but it allows you to be more in the moment. And when you're more in the moment, there's no ego. Because ego knows of the future, past, and it analyzes. Yeah. And it's like when you're in the presence of love, it's like there's only two roots of emotion. That's love and fear. If you're in the present and in love, you don't have any sort of barriers up of you. You allow inspiration to come, goal setting. You're allowed to fully relax. Because when we're not relaxed, we're thinking about we're worrying about things, about the future, about the past. And when you're living in the past, the future, you're not, you're living in the past. It's just a memory. You're not actually in the present. So when you become in the present, be love, and with good food and not a sense of time, you become more in your own power and get more inspiration. And it's very empowering and very rejuvenating for your mind and body. So I've experienced that in the Monroe Institute in an essence of it, and it inspired me. And going back to the time travel part. I wanted to go to the Monroe Institute and meet Robert Monroe, obviously who he is, who obviously titled the out-of-body experience. And I went there wanting to meet Robert Monroe, and they have something called check units, which is where you have a bed with an enclosed wall. Right. And I wanted to meet Robert Monroe, and I went to bed with the intention to see him. And I woke up in the check unit with a massive microphone sticking out the wall. And I was like, that wasn't there earlier. That was really weird. Got up and I saw Robert Monroe and his wife Nancy just outside the room. I was like, oh, and then I clicked out. Woke up and the microphone wasn't there. Fuck. So I went downstairs in the Monroe Institute next morning. I said, I had an experience last night where I woke up and I saw Robert Monroe, but there was a massive microphone sticking out the wall in the check unit. And they go, oh, which check unit are you in? Which room? And I said, oh, it's upstairs. They go, oh, that was one of the original check units that were built, and Robert Monroe installed microphones so he could communicate with people from the audio room to the check units. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's confirmation for me, So I did travel back in time, in a sense. I wasn't fully conscious, but I had experience that validated time travel. Very, very cool. Yeah. So it's nice to experience that, and it's possible. So next time, visit dinosaurs.
That's the plan. I seriously want to travel like that. I have played around with time travel. That was one of the things that really got my kind of interest up in lucid dreaming, was the whole time travel gig, and I got into it for a while. I got some pretty interesting stories going on right there. But I'd be a liar if I said I travelled outside my own lifetime. either forward or backwards. I'm not necessarily even sure we can travel forwards. I mean, the laws of physics is the word to describe it, the habits of physics. The habits of physics currently dictate that we can travel backwards in time, that at least that events in the present can affect the past, retrograde event determination, other quantum physics and so forth. And certainly there seems to be an influence of the present on the past, is in once more physics. And of course, one would argue likewise that what you're doing right now will affect the future, that you collapse something in its current state will remain so until otherwise changed. I mean, just thermodynamics alone would allow for that. But it is something I'm kind of curious about. But probably what I was getting at to some extent too, and that is very curious, but that's very interesting. Have you ever experienced what it is to be outside time, to be, I mean, if you get what I'm saying, you have, and I guess if you don't, maybe you haven't, but I don't know. I mean, have you ever experienced that fractal, for example, represents a kind of a state of consciousness, whereby all of this, time is the four-dimensional space-time world that we live in is a state of consciousness. It's not a place.
It's conscious.
It's a state of consciousness. Space-time reality is a state of consciousness. It's not that there is a space-time place, some objective reality.
It's in flux, isn't it? It's constantly moving.
Well, it's constantly moving for a reason, because it's infinite, of course, ultimately. And everything is constantly moving because everything is infinite. If something was finite, if we could get something to hold, I mean, there's nothing in the world of physics that stands still. Nothing. There's no such thing. Not even empty space is still, because empty space has got quantum fluctuations. So nothing is, even nothing is unstable. Hence the fact the universe came into being in the first place. Somebody says, where's everything come from? I say, well, it comes from nothing. So how could there be nothing? I said, well, there kind of isn't. It can't be, because nothing keeps creating its opposite, which is everything, which is nothing else. A whole lot of fucking paradoxes to get into right there. But nothing is able to hold on to a quality indefinitely, hence impermanence. But at the root of that is that nothing itself is inherently unstable, as in the void itself, the emptiness, that which precipitates everything is ultimately in flux, because it's infinite. And if you define it as nothing, albeit nothing, it's still a kind of a reduction, it's still a something you're defining it as. And once you do that, well, reality doesn't allow that. Existence itself is just, it just is.
It is.
It doesn't have a source, it doesn't need a source, it just is. And unfortunately, without having a lot of time to explain that, people either get what I'm saying or they don't. And I can't break that down any further right now because it's too complex.
So then it answers the question of, do we actually ultimately have a purpose of, a goal where we need to be? Do you know what I mean?
No, on the contrary. Why would you have a goal? A goal is just something that's, a goal is a quality of a consciousness that has a meaning. And, that is to say that although we are inherently infinite, we can still experience ourselves as something illusory and finite. But just to be clear about that, the reason that we decay, the reason things are impermanent, the reason that no two moments in the cosmos have ever been the same, is because ultimately we're infinite. And if we're infinite, everything we experience must change, because it can't stand still. Nothing can. And likewise, meaning can't stand still. Meaning can't be a single objective, no more so than reality can be an objective. There can't be anything objective about it. And yet within that, there can be these kind of transient objective expressions. And in their own right, they can be philosophically managed in that regard. That is to say that just because there's no inherent meaning, it doesn't mean that there's no meaning. Of course there's meaning. There's meaning in everything. There's no inherent meaning. Just because there's nothing here, doesn't mean there's nothing actually here. There's everything here. It's just there's fundamentally nothing here, which is everything, which is a paradox. And these are the things that people get upset about. So for me, Buddhism and Hinduism, Eastern philosophy, is the study of infinity. Western philosophy is in, starting with Roman numerals, Greek philosophy, modern Western science and so forth, is the study of form. But in Western science, we take what's called a positivist philosophical view of reality, which is existentialist, effectively. I think, therefore, I am. We define the world as something is there. There's something there. And that something is a something, and we go from there. The Hindus, on the other hand, started with 0, because they had 0 in their numeral system before we had nothing. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
And it was known as the devil number, wasn't it? I think 0.
Depends on who you speak to and what kind of history you apply to it and all that. But the point of the matter is that the Hindus had 0 in their mathematical concept many, many, many thousand years ago. We didn't have 0 until we got it off them. So we've always taken the Roman numeral view of reality, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is positivist, which is form, which is the material world, which is how science investigates the world today. Science can talk about form till we're blue in the face, and science can do all sorts of magic with form. But once you get past form and you ask, where do you get form from? Science hits a wall. And that's where we currently stand with our scientific model, which is to say we've hit the black hole, the singularity. And that's where science is right now. You've got these various types of very, very deep thinkers saying, well, our model of the universe is basically wrong. And it's not that it's wrong, it just needs to kind of rethink its strategy slightly. And it has to kind of start tiptoeing around this idea of infinity. And until we're willing to do that, if you're going to try and reduce the universe to form, to some kind of an objective motif, you ain't going to cut it sunshine. And this is where, when I say that space-time is a state of consciousness, this is where I'm kind of going with that. That what we existed, what reality is fundamentally is consciousness, is states of consciousness. And those states of consciousness, not to imply that therefore what I'm saying is we are a mind experiencing a body and taking that stance. I'm not. I'm saying that in order for consciousness to experience itself, it must have material, it must have form. So it's not that consciousness creates form and then animates it as in this model that I really can't stand and needs to